I'm at the San Jose Fit Expo with one of the most creative, innovative minds in bodybuilding and training, Alberto Nuñez. In addition to being an amazing natural bodybuilder, he's got some amazing pictures on the internet all over you. You're just shredded, conditioned, and balanced, but also a leader in natural bodybuilding and the strategies and mindset that goes along with this. It's been a pleasure seeing you here, and we've spent time on the phone. We'll talk about that, but tell me what you're doing now and how you're building upon everything you've done. And you've been doing this for like 11 years, even though you're a young man.
Yeah, that's a decently long career in this industry, and we're talking about that, like people come and go, you know? And yeah, no, it's funny, it started out as a hobby. This was like way back in the early 2000s. I think it was yourself, it was Lane Norton, Dr. Joe Klimczewski, probably saying that one wrong. But yeah, it was Dr. Joe, yourself, and Lane that got me going. And I never thought it'd be a career. I just wanted to work really hard at this. And it's kind of crazy what happens when it's a passion and you wake up and that's one of the things on your to-do list that you're like, I can't wait to bodybuild, and all the things that go with bodybuilding, eating, training. And like, here we are. I'm fortunate enough to be like a influencer within our community. And it's gotten to the point now where it's not that I'm at the twilight of my career, but just as important as being an athlete now, it's like I want to leave a legacy. Like I want to be able to say I helped lead the sport better than how I found it.
You know, what you talked about was about the business aspect of it. You kind of glossed over that. I want to come back to that because as you know, there are a lot of bodybuilders who are just as passionate, just as driven, maybe just as gifted, and they don't get quite much out of it because of their approach, and you've done a great job of that. So you not only have been able to be that influencer and enjoy the sport yourself, you also, because you give back, it's lengthened your career, it's made it even better. But before we talk about that, that's what I'm most interested in. Let's give them a little background on your competitive career, because you are quite an accomplished bodybuilder yourself, not just a teacher, not just an influencer.
So I consider myself an athlete. Like, training is still like one of my favorite parts of my day. And you know, I like to say that even though I don't win like the biggest shows, like the guys that win the biggest shows, if they see me on the cards that I'm going to be there, they're like, oh shoot, let's see what Nuñez brings. So I love that respect I get from my peers. I'm usually finishing like top 5. I've done only one world championship event, believe it or not, just one. But a lot of it just has to do with the fact that it just hasn't lined up with other parts of my life, whether it be my business life or my personal life. Like, I love to compete, but it's kind of one of those things that I do when I get the chance to, just because, like you said, like I feel like I'm playing octopus half the time, and you can't be the best athlete you can be if you're not, unless you're like hyper focused on that goal.
I think one thing that impressed me most about you is, now again, it doesn't matter. You can have the greatest strategies in the world. You don't necessarily have to have the physical body, okay? Let me make that perfectly clear from a guy who's achieved a lot with his physical body. So I just want you to know that you can give great advice, great strategies, be cutting edge, and not have a great physique. And with that being said, you do have the great physique and the great training work ethic, and I do believe it carries more weight than someone who
has the mind, but not necessarily the proof, right?
And I think you were one of the first guys to have it all. And so I believe that's part of you being an influencer, because, you know, come on, let's face it, a lot of knowledgeable science guys who, you know, followed your lead and implemented it. They did a lot of yakking. They did a lot of talking. And now they're not around anymore because they didn't back it up, right? It just means a lot more coming from you.
No, I love when, like, my peers, like when bodybuilders like such as yourself say like, hey, Bert, you have a little game. Like, to me, that means like the world. So I love the fact that I've been able to kind of have both of those mesh. And I think one thing that happens with like the very gifted athletes, sometimes they don't ever develop other parts of themselves as much as their physique. I know a lot of guys with physiques that are much better than my own. Like, they're just plain simple better athletes, but they don't know what to do with it. It just kind of sits at home in the garage, basically, and, you know.
Well, that's another thing you talk about being an influencer. That's what I saw about you, is you you created a model for people to follow. You know, back in my day, that wasn't a thing because we didn't have the internet. It was just the magazines, and so it actually wasn't as difficult to get in the magazines, but not very many people tried. So that funnel to get to the top was limited, so a lot of guys didn't know it was available. Right? So you created a career, a path that they didn't know was available to them. So when you talk about just doing it with your physique, they were just doing what everybody else did. You brought a new element to it. You and what I call in the natural bodybuilding world, the real thinkers and the science-based guys. You were one of the original science-based guys.
No, just as much as I'm a fan of like the athletes, I love the science that goes into it. And you know, when you combine both of those worlds, the anecdotal and what science is pumping out, it's funny, like if you kind of listen to both sides, you're going to be a little bit ahead of everyone else all the time. So it was unique when I started, like to kind of listen to the science. It used to be you listen to the biggest dude at the gym or the latest magazine that just came out. So yeah, I love that I've been able to help people, because I don't want people to just listen to what I say. I want them to be critical thinkers.
Right.
And I think that's one thing we're creating now more than ever is like the critical thinker.
Right, and I do think again, how your presentation came about, what I appreciated is, you know, there's a lot of guys who did it certain ways and it worked, right? So you come up with a new strategy. What I appreciate about you is you didn't have this, you're a stupid bro doing it the old ways. You were more empathetic and inviting rather than drawing a line in the sand. And I think that's the biggest challenge that comes with the evidence-based guys versus the old school guys. They draw a line in the sand like someone's better and somebody's worse. And it's not effective if you really want to create change. And that's what I respect and appreciate about your approach. No,
you can't be dogmatic at all. And it's funny, like the way science has been churning things out the last few years, we're starting to find out the bros were right about certain things, you know? So it just kind of goes to show you.
And even if they weren't right, let's just talk about food selection, okay? I think that, you know, the science shows that the food selection doesn't have to be as limited.
No, it's more broader now,
Right. And at the same time, that even though that may not be why this strategy works, it might work with a person's personality because they have less options that they have to do every single day, right? And I think that the evidence-based community is now understanding a lot of the bro things that maybe the science doesn't make it right, but the application and execution and the consistency needed is what makes it right.
Oh, absolutely. See, at the end of the day, you're dealing with people who are not perfect. And if you need this or that, even if it's like, I give myself things that are like a little bit placebo-ish to do, but they work for me. And I kind of know that, you know, for example, a big one for me is like when I'm really close to a show, I start rotating between just mostly foods where there can be no labeling errors. So whole foods. Right. And we were talking about how the bros were at some point laughed at for like doing it. And it's like, no. Because that Greek yogurt might say that this is what's on the label. It might not be totally true, but an apple is an apple. Right. So,
well, now I went through a very successful career and I followed the legends ahead of me and I did it times 10 as well as they did. So, you know, afterwards, you know, still my identity is training. And I had a conversation, it was probably about 6 years ago, where I said, look, I don't want to just do the old ways of doing it just because I did it, just because I succeeded, because, you know, if I can do it easier and get the same results, and you opened my mind to a lot of things in a conversation we had 6 years ago. Now it's 6 years, and not only do I welcome the change to get the same or better results, I need to, because, you know, I've got a family now, I've got responsibilities. I need to conserve a lot of that willpower, focus, energy, and time on other things, and that freed up some of that those precious resources. So, and that's where I am now. You know, I kind of have this responsibility to the old school and the ways that they did it. You know, it's certainty more than anything. Sometimes it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong or you have to do it. You're hanging on to the way you've always done it because of some type of certainty, which is really valuable. And you start to open my mind to that. I think the younger generation having leaders like you, where they can start off from that standpoint, is a really a benefit. what would you say to the older crowd, right? Maybe they came up a half a decade or a decade before you, and they maybe cling on a little bit too tightly, because I like your approach on how you do that.
Well, I'm getting to the point now. I'm 34. I'm in my mid-30s. Like, how does that even happen, right? And like I borrow a lot from the younger generation. Like, I have a group of confidants, and I'm like, all right, what's cool, what's hip, what's happening? Let me stay up to date with trends. Like, I remember, so Instagram has been great for me in regards to, like, it's been a very good platform. I remember there's one of my clients, young female clients, like, you need to get Instagram. And I'm like, why do I need Instagram? Like, I can just upload pictures to Facebook. And here we are 4 years later about. It's like, without Instagram, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. So it's crazy. You got to have 1 year. I mean, use your experience. Don't forget about that, because it counts. It counts. I'm realizing now that you can't discount what you've experienced and just your own personal growth over the years as like going from adolescent to like full-fledged adult. Like, don't discount that. But also, like, keep 1 year out and see what the younger peeps are up to.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I've always been impressed by, I don't know how much you studied the marketing or just naturally fell into place, or a combination of both. And that's what I want to come back to, because you've made a good living staying consistent with your values, being passionate. I mean, a lot of people, they can love bodybuilding and training and have great physiques and win titles, and rounding it all out, and not just saying they round it up, but it's really round out. You've been able to do that. So I think that you've carved a good niche for the short term, long term. That's something we talked about 7 years ago too. And now you're staying on top of with Instagram. Talk about that. And is that something the younger bodybuilders are doing more of it? Or there's still a lot or too many who are going to win it with their physique and their knowledge, and they don't open themselves up? I mean, tell me what your feelings are about that.
Oh, I think the biggest difference now, I think especially with Instagram, like, it was supposed to be for photographers. I think they would upload pictures, and that was its original flow, its original intent, and it turned out to be what it is now. So it's perfect for fitness, because a lot of it has to do with what I look like, right? But now it's kind of saturated. It's saturated to the point where you have to kind of make yourself stand out. And I think one thing that people do too much is they're copycats. Like, so-and-so is doing this, so I'm going to go do that. And that might not even be your natural talent. Like, I think one thing I've done relatively well is, like, I'm self-aware in that I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm bad at, and I'm going to play what I'm good at, because those are my strengths, and that's how I'm going to present myself. If I were to try to be a Lane Norton or an Eric Helms, I would fail miserably. I can't play that role. So I think that's the big thing when carving out a career within the fitness industry. If that's what you want to do, is you need to be real with yourself. Like, what are your strengths? What are you good at? And, like, don't try to be a mastiff that pretends it's a Chihuahua. It doesn't work that, Right.
Well, one thing that, if you were to read all the internet marketing books, and they're outside of fitness, and that's something you talked about, we talked about before, is where you want to niche it down. Sometimes in fitness, you think that if you can appeal to the most people, that means more opportunities, where actually it works out just the opposite.
Exactly. Because everyone's doing this. This is hot. I'm going to do it. Guess what? No one's going to see what you're doing.
Right. Now, tell me about your specific niche, where you want it narrow, where, like, all the internet out. Again, I don't know how much of that is things that you study, or that's just who you were, or a combination. Why don't you first address that? This is more about the business success and how when you're red hot on your specific niche, it brings more people to you, the right people.
See, I think that one thing I've done well is I'm a bodybuilder, a decently talented bodybuilder, but along with that, you get a few other things that are unique, like a brain, a person. I'm like almost a beer junkie, in a healthy manner. 3 a week, but yeah, I think giving people the human. It's almost been like people follow me because not just the athlete, but the person. They buy into that, and I think that's huge. Like, if you like the person, you're going to buy from them. I think that's one thing I've done relatively well. Is, like, people here in the expo, like, when they approach me, it's like they know half my life.
Yeah.
half my life on the internet anyways, and that's
well,
been important.
well, one thing that sticks out about you, and that ties in what you said, is this natural comfort that you have with yourself, and that probably came before you started bodybuilding.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I told you, like, you know, everyone wanted muscles.
Right,
I was so skinny, and people thought it was a problem. Like, nah, I'm fine. Like, I don't feel like I need to fix anything. Like, unlike a lot of people who started this, there was something wrong with you in the fitness industry. I guess the motto is like, you're ugly, but we can help you. And it never came that way to me. It was just something, I guess, to do, and it's still kind of the way I run things, whether it be personally or with the business.
And that makes you stick out. It's sort of like you would say embrace your uniqueness, because that's really the only thing you have to do and make it in this.
Exactly.
And that's a challenge sometimes, right? Because if someone's had challenges their whole life, they spent the whole time not being them or de-emphasizing. I always think of actress Julia Roberts. She hated her big lips. You know, and now that's the thing that made her the actress that she was. And I think that we as bodybuilders, and I think they're getting it more and more, right, is that thing that made you feel self-conscious is probably the thing that so many people can identify with. And like I said, you have that comfort to just be who you are, and you've always had that, and it's always helped you stick out as you evolve. It's just something else. So that's another thing I think that goes beyond the sets and reps and the muscles and the striated glutes, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you gotta play to your strengths. You know, you can be a 6'4" center in the NBA, right? You're gonna have to find something else. Yeah,
well, like I said, for a lot of things, you brought a lot of uniqueness, not just to natural body, just to bodybuilding, you know, and everybody who relates to you. So I've always admired you from afar. We have talked on the phone. The internet brings us closer, but this is the first time we've really had a chance to talk.
Oh, I saw you and like Skip, like you've been like, again, like one of those guys that I look up to. Like, I was like, so what can I aim for as a natural bodybuilder? Obviously, you're a little bit bigger than I, but I'm like, that's that
conditioning though, Mac. When I was getting that conditioning, that you had nobody could do that. And then you came along, and so many people. Now everybody has this condition. Well, a lot more. You know what I mean?
Well, and the big thing is, like, you made it known that, like, you could make a living off this bodybuilding thing. You know, like, to me, that was like, this dude's doing it. Like, he wakes up and he does what he loves for a living.
Pre-social media, right?
Exactly. Oh, on the scale, it's crazy. On that scale back then, like, you were bigger than any name, like, right now. Like. So you got to respect that.
Well, you know, I appreciate a guy like you saying that, and this guy's going to help me step into the more current ways of doing things. I'm going to be watching you and learning from you. Continue to learn from you. So, Alberto Nuñez, thank you so much for spending this time.
Thank you.
And introduce you to the older crowd. Hey, if you're older like me, you've been following me around. You know, the influx. Fusion of some newer strategies can help you look great and, you know, save some of that willpower, focus, energy, and time for your family and your business and our future, you know. When you're younger, we look so great and pay the price joyfully, right? Well, maybe there's other options to get this done, and Alberto can help you do that, and I'll do everything I can to help you too. All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.